All right, I am so excited today to welcome a very special guest. We're talking about healing from emotional abuse, and I have Becky Wengreen here. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. So, welcome to the show, Becky.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. This is so fun.
Yes. So, tell people a little bit about you, maybe your practice, and what you do as a
Okay.
therapist.
Okay. My name is Becky, by the way, Wengreen, and I reside in Mapleton and I have a practice. I'm basically the practice right now called the Edify Group in Provo, Utah. I went back to school at a very, in my later 40s. I had a lot of experiences that led me to therapy. And when I had a chance to go back to school or when I was required to, for a lot of reasons, which I might share a little bit later, I chose to be an LMFT, which is a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I had been married for 9 years, and my husband and I, between us, have 6 children and 8 grandchildren, and number 9 is coming in May. And we
Wow.
really, really enjoy our family. It is,
Oh,
it is very, very fun.
I love it.
So that's that. And I was born and raised in Salt Lake City. So that's
Awesome.
basically that's my introduction
That's who
as
you
far.
are. Awesome. Okay. And I was so excited when you reached out to talk about um abuse and different things like that because it can be a difficult topic to address. And so I would love for you to kind of share how you came to that knowledge about emotional abuse. I know you have some personal aspects and some learning as you went through school. So would you kind of share that background?
Sure. In a nutshell, let me see if I can be brief
Okay.
because I do have, as we get older, our histories become longer. And so,
Sure.
so yes, when I was 20 years old, I married for the first time. And I remember just feeling confused. And I remember people coming to me and saying things like, "Isn't marriage the best? And how's married life?" And a lot of my friends from high school and things, we were kind of all in that same era of life, getting married and getting engaged. And people would always say, "Oh, it's so fantastic. I love it. It's great. I love it." And I would say that, but I didn't mean it.
Mm.
I would try. I was just confused. I was like, "I'm not sure I like this.
Yeah.
There's something restrictive about this that I just, I don't like. I feel like I'm losing myself. I feel like confusion was a lot of it. And I just didn't feel like it should be that hard to be married if it was that good.
Right.
And it was hard for me. It was hard for me to be married. I felt like I was sacrificing a lot. I felt like there was a lot of conflict. I felt like I was in trouble a
Mm.
lot. And it was really hard, but mostly at the beginning it was confusion. And then I started feeling like I lost myself. And I remember at a crucial time when I was feeling so much stress, I opened up to my sister and I said, you know, this, what about this? And this is going on. And she was like, "Oh, no, 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 no." And she is an older sister because I'm the youngest of six. So I only have older siblings. And she was like, "Becky, no, that is not what should be happening."
Yeah.
And it was very hard. It was very confusing. Um, I found myself divorced, which was actually a good thing, but I was not well
Mm.
emotionally. And I found myself right back in another relationship way too quickly. And although it was different, there was still emotional abuse.
Mm.
And then even financial abuse and some exploitation and some things there. And I think because of my desperation and my need to just, we're LDS and this is what you do, and you get married and you have a family and it's happy. And in my zeal to do that, I remarried very, very quickly. And I found myself going from the frying pan into the fire.
Mm.
And in that relationship, I experienced 5 lawsuits and just a lot of really stressful things that I had no idea were
Mm,
happening.
mhm.
So it was only 4 years, but it did a lot of damage.
Yeah,
And it was a roller coaster ride. And again, there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of self doubt. And one thing I feel like I need to mention is that when you are raised in a family that's pretty much healthy, I mean, we had issues here and there. We were normal people, but I had no skills to advocate for myself in that way because
yeah,
one, the abuse was so confusing and so mental. I had been taught that you put other people's feelings first. And when you're in a family where everybody does that, you kind of figure out that it works,
yeah.
that if everyone's doing that same thing, we kind of
That's
get
okay.
along.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And you didn't call people names. You were very respectful and you sacrificed. That's just what you
yeah,
did. And so I didn't have this huge need to know how to work through the things that were coming at me.
yeah.
And so just trying to move on from my story into I did eventually need to separate from that partner, and I went through a second divorce, which was horrible.
Mm,
I thought I was doing better. I went to therapy, and about 18 months later, I remarried again. Very, very different. I thought I was, doing things differently, taking more time. And then again, same thing, confusion, but it was a different confusion. It was very covert.
mm,
It was everything looked good on the outside, but there was this coldness,
mm,
um, this almost neglect, this lack of warmth and
mhm.
empathy. And by then I had children, and children were in the mix. And so anyone that has been married and divorced and then remarried, if you have children, you know the kind of stress that brings in trying to blend a family.
Yeah.
And so I found myself again after 13 years of that marriage again, and I had through the lawsuits, I had lost my home, my cars,
Mm,
everything. And I found myself again in the same boat, losing my home, the cars, everything. And I found myself divorced a third time with a 2 year old, and I was 40. I was 42 when I had a 2 year old. So I complicated things as much as I possibly could because I had children in each of these marriages. I was
oh,
committed that this was going to work.
yeah,
And try as I might, I just found myself again stripped of everything,
yeah,
confused, so ashamed, so broken, um, and just just I thought, okay, I am the common denominator here. I have to figure this out. And so again, I went to therapy and tried to get myself healthy. And for about 8 years between the times we were separated and the time I remarried, that is what I did. I worked on myself. I worked on understanding. I worked on trying to figure out what I was doing that created this in my life because
yeah.
I was a devout member of the church. I have never been married outside the temple,
Wow.
you know,
Mhm.
and and I thought I was doing the right things.
Yeah,
And I was doing a lot of things right, but I
yeah,
was missing a few other things. So that in a nutshell is just the events
yeah.
of my life and what brought me to be a therapist now
I
is
love
is
that.
because
Yeah,
I've had a lot of experiences in marriage that were very unhealthy,
yeah, yeah. And we
very
talked
unhealthy.
before we hit record that we talked about how, you went through these experiences and you are wanting to turn them for good. And I just love that you're doing that. You're taking this pain and hurt that you've been through and just wanting to give back to the community and show them how that they can do this too.
Yes, well, sometimes if you do it wrong, you know how to tell somebody else what to avoid.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope to do. These are things
Yeah.
that I didn't look for or I didn't understand.
Mhm.
And so, boy, I'll tell you, when I met I call him my number forever, um, because I was not going to make that mistake again. But I wanted to be married. I wanted all that came with that,
Yeah.
and so I kept going. I have many people say to me, "Oh, I would have given up. I would have given
Yeah.
up."
Yeah.
And sometimes I think maybe I should have, but no, that was not who I was. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be married.
Yeah.
I still want to be married. I want all
Yes.
that comes
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
that is how I got to where I am right now.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that because I think it's so helpful for women to hear these experiences that might be going through this, that might be feeling that same confusion and shame. And I think personal stories help women not feel so alone because I think that loneliness is what drives that shame too, feeling, alone
Oh,
in this experience.
it's so isolating.
Hmm.
And some emotional abuse is isolating as well. It's
Right.
like,
Exactly. You're already
and so
isolated. Yeah.
you're already being pulled into this isolation, in some cases, and then your shame also wants you just want to say, I mean, I don't want to talk to anybody, and I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to see anybody, who I've known from the past whose life is successful and
Hmm.
productive and all this, and I'm on my second bankruptcy.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I want to see anybody from high school.
Right, right,
Sorry, you
right.
know,
Yes. Yes. Well, and
you
and
know.
you're yeah, and you're talking about some things because when we talk about emotional abuse, it's hard to identify because physical abuse, you're being physically abused, right? And or sexually abused, right? Those things are happening. But emotional abuse, and we're always taught it's hard to even report that as a therapist to report emotional abuse or for people to prove that that's happening. It's so difficult.
Right.
So, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, to the woman who's listening to this and she's saying to herself, "Am I experiencing emotional abuse?" What are some of the signs that they might notice or become more aware of that might be happening to them to know
Yeah,
that this
for
is
sure.
emotional abuse?
For sure. So emotional abuse is, like you said, it's like the silent. It, it's
Hmm.
it's it's very covert. It's covered, and it can come in confusion. And I've reinforced that a lot. Self doubt. You keep thinking, did I say that, or
Yeah.
did I was my tone off, or did I remember that wrong, or you're told you're just too sensitive.
Mm.
You're just too sensitive. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's you. You're just too sensitive.
Yeah.
It's a pattern though. We can all have a bad day. We can all say something unkind to our spouse. But when it becomes this persistent pattern or consistently inconsistent, like my spouse can be so great one day, and then the next day they're like somebody I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. So it's consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
So they're kind and then they rage, or they are, I mean, there's the extreme. You're being called names, you're being demeaned, you're being dominated.
Hmm.
They always know better than me. And I'm always having to submit, or I'm the one who's always apologizing. I'm the
Yeah.
one who's always saying, you know what? Okay, that was me. Or I'm the one who's trying to just pull the family back together or pull us as a couple back together so that
Yeah.
we can do this. It may be that you get mocked. It may be that your religion gets mocked or your family or of origin gets mocked. It may be that they stonewall you. And when I say stonewalling, it means that it's like they take their ball and go home.
Mm.
You're playing with their ball and they just take that and they go home and they won't talk to you and they shut themselves away. And you're like, I'm trying to reconnect with this person and they have shut you totally out. And that
Yeah.
can be very damaging
Yeah.
when that's your person and they just shut you out.
Right.
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 So there's so many things, and the isolating, you feel like you're walking on eggshells, right? If I be myself, if I am really truthful, is that okay? Or
Yeah.
am I getting in trouble for that? you know?
Yeah.
So those are a lot of things. It erodes your confidence. It can silence you. It's very, very covert and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
your brain is constantly, you are hypervigilant in what do I say? When do I say it? How do I say it? And you are exhausted because emotionally you are trying to navigate this relationship that just doesn't let you be yourself.
Right.
You,
Yeah.
you have to emotionally just, you're like going to step on a landmine any minute.
Mhm. You're trying to adjust
And
all the time and it's not working and that's exhausting.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it's this, it can be a roller coaster ride or the trajectory can be just totally like this, or a roller
Yeah.
coaster on your way down.
Right? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, there may be good moments, but it's that pattern and that persistent pattern that over time you're like, this thing just keeps happening.
Yeah.
I keep feeling like I'm sacrificing. I keep feeling like I'm the one who has to
Yeah.
apologize. I keep feeling like I'm like not good enough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of types of emotional abuse. Um,
Yeah.
and and for me, I because I hadn't in a romantic relationship, I never really knew healthy.
Right.
It took me a long time to put the word abuse to what was happening, and it was very difficult to swallow that bitter pill. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's abuse.
Yeah.
And even now in my practice, I have to be very careful when I introduce that because many, and I was one of them, I didn't want to end the marriages. I just wanted change.
Yeah. Just want the abuse to stop.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
have rather just, kept the family together
Yeah.
and just had the behaviors change.
Yeah.
That didn't happen for me.
Yeah. So if the woman is listening to this and she's like, this might be me, I might be experiencing this, or I know someone that might be going through this, and they're thinking, something just isn't right. What's kind of the first step that they can take in this situation?
Well, yeah, if you feel confused all the time and you see other people and you're like, I just that is just not my experience, right? You know somebody that's happily married and you try to describe what you're going through and they just can't even imagine it. Right?
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Um, it's finding somebody that you trust, which I had. I had a sister that I opened up to, and she
Right?
was like, "Oh no, 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 no."
Mhm.
And then in my practice, I have created an emotional bill of rights that
Mm.
helps. That is just something you can go through and ask yourself, "Do I feel like I can do that in this relationship?" Now, a right doesn't necessarily mean you always exercise it.
Yeah.
It just means that if you need to, you
Could you?
get to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
And so without there's 17 of these.
Wow.
Let me quickly run through
Okay.
these. The
Okay.
first the first three are about safety and dignity. So one, I have the right to seek peace and safety. There may be somebody that wants to leave the room and you're told you can't.
Mhm.
You can't leave or they block your path. That's not okay. I have the right to remove myself from situations or people that feel threatening or harmful. I have the right to respect myself and expect respect coming back.
Mhm.
Um, the second one is identity and your internal authority, which is I have the right to exist as a distinct and valuable individual. I have the right to maintain and grow my unique identity, independent of someone else's. I have the right to think, feel, and believe what I think, feel, and believe.
Yeah.
I have the right to trust my perceptions, emotions, thoughts, and interpretations. The third one is about boundary and autonomy. I have the right to choose my likes, dislikes, and my preferences and values. I have the right to say yes, no, I don't know, and I don't care, and I don't understand. You get to say any of those things. Now, I can
Mhm.
say right now, I didn't get to say I changed my mind.
Yeah.
And there were some times when it was like, no, you committed and you don't get to change your mind.
Yeah.
Well, if the data changes in your life and people are choosing different things in your life than they had chosen before, you can change your mind,
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the right to ask for what I need. I have the right to make decisions, even imperfect ones, and to take responsibility for the consequences. I have the right to decline, to justify, or over explain my choices. And what that means is at some point in time, you don't have to explain why you're choosing what you're choosing.
Mhm.
If it is not falling upon someone that is respectful of you as an independent person, you may not explain. You may just need to say, I'm choosing to distance myself and I don't need to explain that to you
Right.
because sometimes you've explained it for years
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and nothing has changed. Okay. So I have the right to own and control my time, my energy, my body, and my property. The next two are related to agency. I have the right to begin, maintain, or end a relationship. You may not want to do that, but you do have the right to at some point in time. If you are not feeling safe, you get to end a relationship. The last two are about growth and human imperfection because no one's perfect. So I have the right to make mistakes and learn from them. And I have the right to grow, change, and refine myself over time. So if you read those kinds of rights and you think to yourself, I don't have that. I, there's no way that would be okay with my spouse. That can be an indicator that this might be happening.
Yeah.
If you have trusted friends, if you go to a therapist, and this was something that was hard for me because a lot of therapists are taught to be neutral, and I have to say I am not.
Yeah. When there's abuse
If
involved, we need to not be, right?
when I hear that there is something going on and I see the nervous system of my client being frazzled,
Yeah.
I will say something
Yeah.
that is not neutral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so because I needed that empowerment when I was a client,
Yeah. Yeah.
I needed somebody to say, you get to say that's not okay in a
So do you
boundary. And
yeah.
I'm
I was just
sorry,
saying,
go
do you
ahead.
feel like that's kind of like the next step that they should do? So if they're feeling like I don't have these rights, is to go see a therapist and maybe talk this through and see if this is something that they might be experiencing?
Right. Or someone that you really trust that like I said, that has healthy relationships that you
Yeah.
can see if they're telling you, hey, because I'm telling you, without my sisters, I don't know that I would have made it,
Yeah.
especially through three divorces.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they could give me different information and they were there for me and they were very trustworthy. And I knew that if I told them we worked it out, they weren't going to hold it against my husband
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
They
that.
were
So
not
find
going to
somebody trustworthy, right? That you can talk
somebody
to and explain
trustworthy
this and yeah.
that can have discretion,
Yeah.
that can be accepting, understanding that look, we're pro marriage. I am so pro marriage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
on paper, you wouldn't know that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so yes, so a trusted friend, a therapist that you can trust, a therapist that can dive deep with you, because I know there are some that just want to be reflective listeners
Yeah.
and they just want to reflect back what you're going through. But but for me personally, I needed skills. I
Yeah.
needed to know what emotional abuse was like,
Mhm.
and I needed to understand then what my choices were moving forward to do about that. And I needed modeling
Yeah.
because I had not experienced the words coming at me that I was
Yeah.
getting and the manipulation and the word twisting and the gaslighting and
Yeah.
things of that nature that I was like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And I would get confused and then I would just end up apologizing again because I
Yeah.
hated the conflict.
Yeah.
The conflict was just so uncomfortable and I just hated it. And I just wanted things to be okay. And it was like, fine, I'll do whatever I need to do.
Right.
Just can we just stop this?
Yeah.
So I found with each divorce that I knew I was going to have to go through some really hard stuff to
Yeah.
get divorced
Yeah.
because of the type of tactics that were being used
Right.
coming at me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're gonna need that
So,
support, having that person in your life and
yes,
doing that.
so that's where I needed that support because as I was trying to hold my ground and set boundaries, those were met with a lot of resistance
Yeah.
because
S
there wasn't respect
Right.
for
Yeah.
boundaries in the
Yeah.
marriage.
Right. So, and you're kind of leading into this next question, which I think is beautiful. When you said after your 3rd marriage, you said, "I needed to really take some time and do some healing," right?
Mhm.
And you took that, over time, I need to heal from this. And you kind of talked about some of those aspects. So, women listening to this, that you might need to take that first step and reach out to somebody. But what does healing from emotional abuse? Maybe somebody isn't in the relationship anymore. Maybe they've left and they're trying to heal from this. So, what does that look like over time? Like looking at the root causes, like why do I go back to this, or what's making me, um, you know, not see these things in this
Right,
situation. So what
right.
does that healing look like over time for somebody?
Well, for me, it was, and I love that that you said the word root because it's getting back to that identity.
Yeah,
And the reason I use my maiden name is because that is my identity.
I love
It's on my checkbook, it's on everything because
that.
that was where my family was, and that was where my support was, and that was where my unconditional love came from.
Mm,
Because when you're in a marriage, unconditional love kind of doesn't work.
right.
It is conditional. There are certain expectations we need in a
Right.
marriage to keep it safe.
Mhm.
But I had a support of unconditional love. And so, first of all, and because I am very closely tied to the gospel, my identity went there.
I love
You
that.
know, I am a daughter of God
Mm,
and I need him. I needed my family on earth and I needed his his love, his forgiveness. I needed to repent, whatever I needed to do. I needed him stronger in my life because I knew that I could not do this without him.
yeah.
I couldn't heal without him and I couldn't find another spouse without him telling me this was okay because I wasn't doing it again. And the
Yeah.
only source that I could trust that knew that was omniscient
Mhm.
was him. Right. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I had to grow that relationship, and healing happens in relationships.
Mm.
And so I used my family, my sisters, my brothers, just that support system was there. And I ended up working on an alpaca farm of all things.
Oh, wow.
When I was divorced the third time, I had nowhere to go. We were bankrupt. Um, we were separated, and we had paid rent for 6 months. And after that, I was I had a 2-year-old at home. I didn't have a job. I was making crafts in my basement, basically, to put
Wow.
food on the table. I had a little vinyl lettering business. And there was this ad to go raise alpacas. And I was like, what's an alpaca? I had no idea. Well, I ended up, long story short, I ended up raising alpacas for 3.5 years,
Oh my
which meant
goodness.
I had to get up 6 days a week and go feed them. I had to get moving. I had to
Yeah.
lift hay bales. I had to lift them. I
Wow.
I was moving things around. I was pulling on their bridles. I was physically working every day. I was outside.
Yeah.
I was moving my body, and Heavenly Father picked me up and put me in that place for a reason, and it was to get me healed.
Wow.
So For 3.5 years, I worked on that farm. It was amazing. I was breeding them. They were giving birth, and I was catching those babies. I was shoving pills down their throat. I was removing ticks out of their ears. I was going places I'd never gone before. And
Yes.
as incredible it was hard work, and it was hard on my body, and I had bruises
Yeah.
everywhere, but boy,
Mm.
was I fit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so after 3.5 years, I was fit, and I was learning, and I was going to therapy. I was reading a lot, and I was reading my scriptures. I decided if I was going to heal, I needed to dig deeper into the gospel, not go further
Mm.
from it.
Yeah.
And so the
Yeah.
words diligent, the words fervent, the words that really meant commitment to the gospel, I just took those on. And the floor of my closet and me were very good friends, because
Mm.
I would pour my heart out to Heavenly Father in prayer nightly. And I
Yeah.
mean sobbing,
Yeah.
sobbing, tears. And there were times I wanted to avoid it, because I knew I got to go pray again.
Yeah.
That means
Yeah.
I've got to pour my heart out, and I hurt, and I'm going to have to do it. And I would just sob.
Mm.
But those prayers were heard, and I prayed out loud.
Yeah.
And that is something that I really think made a difference.
Wow.
As we pray out loud, I don't know if it's that our brain is verbally processing things different. I think it does.
Yeah.
I don't know if angels can hear you better, but I was getting more help
Yeah.
when I would pray out loud
Wow.
than when I would pray to myself, even though I
Wow.
did millions of prayers to myself.
Yeah.
But I would pray out loud, and I would just read. And when I started this journey, I was like, I'm just going to look up what it means to pray.
Yeah.
And the definition I found was to obtain by begging.
Mm.
And boy, did I beg.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
begged. I just begged. My heart was so broken,
Mm.
just broken. And I would just beg for relief,
Yeah.
and for healing, and for guidance. And I got so much. I
Mm.
got the people around me, my family. I don't know how many times I called my sisters, but in the night, in the morning, whenever, I mean, they were probably just like, oh my gosh, it's her again, you know. But but
Yeah.
it did something to my nervous
Yeah.
system that I had to purge out.
Yeah.
I had adrenal failure.
Mm.
I got down to, I'm five, well, at that time I was about 5'7", almost. I got down to 108 pounds.
Mm.
I couldn't eat. I
Mm.
wasn't sleeping. There was so much angst and damage and trauma in my body that it just took me a long time to heal. But
Yeah.
getting back to my identity, to
Yeah.
my roots, to who I really was, I would put music on as loud as I could, and I would dance,
Mm.
because dancing was part of who I am.
Yeah.
And that helped me. And I would cry. I would find myself in the middle of it, because it was emotional, releasing all this through tears.
Yeah.
Um, I, you know, I'm looking at my notes, because there's so many things that I learned to do. But I had to find my identity, and then I had to use it to learn how to trust myself again. And those were the steps coming out, is I had to use my new, this is what I want, these are my values. And then I had to ask for them. I needed to say no to certain things. I needed to say yes to certain things. And I needed to vocalize my voice and say, this is what I need. This is what I want. No to this. Yes to this. Do the work. Get up and start moving. It's like the Lord can't steer the parked car, right? You've got to get up. You've got to do it. And if without trusting yourself and learning that I could use my voice, that I could create my own safety with my own boundaries, and that I could create something different for myself,
I
Right.
think I think kind of to sum up what you were saying is healing comes in all different forms, right? I really love this like coming back to the identity in the Navajo culture, which I work with a lot. The healing comes from reconnecting to your identity of your clans and learning about your clans. And so we have traditional counselors that just remind people of where they came from, and healing comes from that. But I also love the non-traditional ways that you talked about, just getting out there and moving your body and being in nature and connecting with things that you love to do and people and having a support system. That healing doesn't just look like going to therapy once a week, right? It is that and so much
Right.
more, and
So
coming
much
back to
work.
who you are.
Right.
And I really love this concept of connecting with God, because when you experience something painful and difficult, it can be really easy to become angry with God, and you kind of started alluding to this, like push God away and not want him to be a part of your story anymore because what you experienced is so painful. How did you do that? How can someone stay connected to God while going through healing of emotional abuse or the effects of emotional abuse and not have it turn the other way? What do you think is helpful in that situation?
Right. And this is a hard one because I know that Heavenly Father understands that we are imperfect. That's why we're here. And that sometimes we want to shake our fist at him,
Yeah.
you know. Something that helps me a lot is deciphering between, did God do this or was this someone's choice? Is
Mm.
this a result of somebody's choices or
And
is
their
this God
agency?
doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not. This is not God doing that.
Mhm.
And and that can be really hard to untangle. Um, but untangling that and saying, no, God didn't do that.
Yeah.
That was this person gets to choose for themselves, and that is something that they are choosing. And so, even though I can be angry, and I have been at times, but not necessarily at God for sure. A lot at myself, and I think that has been for my journey the most painful part is the self betrayal
Mm.
that I felt when I would look back and go, look at what you've done to
Mm.
yourself.
Yeah.
And there's the shame right there.
Yep. Yeah.
And so my being able to help other people and say, you know, that there is a way out of this. There is happiness on the other side of this. There is healing. There is healing on the other side of this. And I can relate to your experience. And can I share, in therapy, I'll ask, can I share something with you that I went through
Yeah.
so that they can understand that the pain, it may be kind of different circumstances, but boy, I get pain.
Right. Yeah. I
I
really
understand pain.
yeah. Yeah, I really love what you said, separating someone's agency with God. That, God is not able to interfere with somebody else's agency, and
No,
that doesn't necessarily mean that he can stop them from doing that. He can help us and warn us and encourage us to make, different choices and protect us, but not necessarily putting that blame on God, and distinguishing that difference can be really helpful in wanting
for
him to
sure.
be in your story.
Because because he didn't choose that.
Yeah.
He didn't choose that. He chose to give us agency, and then we choose what to do with that. And
Yeah.
then we can also choose to heal, or we can choose to carry the
Mm.
victimization and the anger at God.
Yeah.
We could choose that.
Mm.
I don't know how happy you're going to be, but you
Yeah.
can choose it.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
And he knows that.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to take our agency. I think that is one of our most greatest gift, right?
Yep.
And so and so at some point in time, if we can connect back with ourselves and grow the strength and the courage, we can take risks again in life that feel really scary, like dating
Yeah.
and like trusting someone, and we can take risks again and we feel more capable.
Yeah.
We feel more whole. We feel like, okay, because guess what? I have this connection that goes this way.
Yeah. A
And
vertical
when,
connection.
right. And when the horizontal connections don't work or someone rejects me, I still have this relationship and I
Yeah.
heal in a relationship. And I have a relationship with my Father in heaven and with my sibling, Jesus Christ,
Yeah. Yeah.
who is, again, that advocate. And when I would be in the darkest places thinking, I can't explain this, nobody understands it. Nobody, I can't explain what I'm feeling. I can't explain what this feels like. Guess who knew what it felt like?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Exactly what it felt like. With perfect empathy, I could imagine him by my side saying, yeah, this hurts a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
feel this with you. Never alone, always someone there. And that connection, that relationship, if you don't have siblings, if you don't have a family, if you don't have those friends, God and Christ are there.
Yeah.
They are always there. And I learned to trust them. And the more I trusted them and gave it to them, the more I would see their hand. And then the more I could trust them.
Yeah.
And the more I would just say, you know what? He's got it.
Yeah.
He's got me. And I could go on with confidence and say, you know what? I know Heavenly Father's got this.
Yeah.
And there's the be still and know that I am God.
Mhm.
And I can say, okay, I've done enough. I've wrung my hands enough. I've worried enough. Be still and know that I'm God.
I
Okay.
love that. I love that. Oh, this has been wonderful, Becky. This is such good information. I love the mix of your experience with the clinical knowledge and what this looks like. And I think so many women listening to this might be like, "How can you be my therapist?" So why don't you tell people about your practice, about your podcast? Where can they reach out to you if they feel like they've connected and they want some help and support from you?
I would love them to reach out. TheEdifyGroup.com is our website,
Okay.
theedifygroup.com. We are in Provo, but
Yeah.
I have telehealth. I take a few insurances, not everything, but give us a call and we can see. I also have a podcast that is new that is called Hungry for Healing. And they are just interviews kind of like this that I bring a guest on that tells us about a journey that they've taken and how they have found healing. I do have a few experts that come in here and there and also share some mental health or, you know, other expert information that they have expertise in.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's where we are. You know, healing, it can feel like you're starving for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you can feel that desperate or broken or whatever word you'd like to use. And so that's why I use that word hungry because it does drive you to do something. It's like I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
and it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And,
Yeah.
but there are people there that can help and support you and love you
Yeah.
through this.
I love that. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. We'll link all of those things in the show notes so you guys can find Becky and her podcast and her practice and learn more from her as well. Also, if this episode was helpful to you, please share it with somebody else who might need to hear this or might be experiencing this as well. And I always say this at the end of my episodes is that, you know, it's through small and simple things that great things are brought to pass. Healing will come in small and simple ways. So don't look for the big giant thing that's going to create the healing in one fell swoop, right? It's through small and simple things that great things are brought to pass. So thank you,
Yes.
everyone. And I hope to see you guys next week on the next episode. Thank you very much, Becky.
Thank you so much, Nikki.